Hello, welcome back. I think this is video 34 now, is it? And if you're a fan of Harry's Farm and Harry's Garage, this is going to be a kind of Harry's Farm video. So I've got my cardboard envelope in front of me with a list of numbers and stuff, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So as we are basically now done with this car, we're done with getting this little Fiat 131 road ready. Other than tyres, everything else has been paid for, so it's all good to go. The shock absorbers, tonight it's Sunday the 21st of September 2025. I'm expecting the shock absorbers to arrive tomorrow. I'm also expecting my 2-litre twin cam to arrive tomorrow, so that should be exciting. And if any of you out there are Lancia fans, Lancia Beta fans, and you need any engine gearbox related parts, let me know, because there could well be some available, and they'll be cheap. Okay, sorry, I had to pause there. There are going to be a lot of edits in this because I've got a cold. I've got a tickly cough, streaming noise in a runny nose, and it's really annoying. And I wish it would just go away, but everybody around here seems to have it at the moment. So basically, yeah, this video we're going to talk about costs and where we are. So if you're thinking about taking on this sort of project, importing a car, then you'll know what sort of costs are involved. And bearing in mind, I've done all this work myself. Everything has been done myself, other than the head skim. So there's no labour in here whatsoever. So if you're paying someone else to do it for you, expect these prices to go up vastly. So basically, yeah, as you know, I bought the car from Italy, found it on a parking cars website or something it was called, and it was being sold by another company. And it turned out that Gabrielle, who's my friend in Italy, he was looking at the cars for me, and it turned out this one was around you've heard this story before, but this one was around the corner from him, so he was able to go and have a look at it for him, and he said, yeah, just buy it, it's great. It's got one bit of rust on it, which is the bit under the bonnet where the rubber goes. Turns out that's where the hood pin's going to go, so it doesn't matter, there's rust, it's got to have a plate welded on anyway, so that's good. So yeah, the car was advertised for €2,000 or €2,100, I think it was, and basically Giorgio did a lot of work to get it through its test so that it could be deregistered to come to Italy. It was basically being sold, when you buy something as spares, parts not working, whatever, that's how it was being sold. But he had the goodness of his heart, he did all that work for me to get it through the MOT, which was, I think, I know the front calipers, I had to rebuild them anyway, but the front calipers were seized and he got them unseized and good enough to pass the MOT. The rear bumper was broken, which would have been a fail. The rear light was broken, which would have been a fail. The door handle on the driver's door was broken. He's replaced all those parts and never asked for any more money. So I basically gave him €2,400. So, and I think he was quite happy with that. So basically I'm saying the car cost me £2,000. The import fees, or the cost to import the car, so the physical cost to have somebody go down to Italy, collect it, put it on a trailer and bring it back, was £1,800. Now, there are many companies you can use. I forget now the name of the company I used, but I have mentioned it in a previous video. And what they do is you go on there and you say where the car is, where you are, is it running, is it drivable, blah, 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 blah. And they all come back with quotes. And the cheapest quote I had was about £900, I think, but that was to drive the car back. It's like, there's no way was this car going to drive, the way it was when I got it, I wouldn't have trusted it to drive it a mile down the road. It would have lost all its engine oil with that massive oil leak. But and I'm guessing they would have just driven it until it seized up, and then it would have been my problem. But anyway, these great guys on there, and basically it was £1,800 they ended up with, all in. So it's like 1,600 quid or something plus the VAT, and there's fees on top of that as well that the company charges. So we're not on top of that in that. So now if I go directly back to that company, then it will be cheaper, probably about 1,500 quid, because they charge about £300 fees just for recommending them. And then of course, once it got here, it had to be registered. If you are getting a classic car from Italy or whatever, or wherever in the world, don't watch the videos that are all over YouTube about filling out this and filling out that. Everything changed mid-2024. So if the video is pre-2024, ignore it, because it's all changed. You now have to use somebody for the customs or something. You can't do it yourself. You can do everything else yourself, but it's so easy. I just went to my car import and they just dealt with it, and it was 600 quid, done. And it was registered within about a fortnight. I had number plates for this car in about 2 weeks. It was absolutely incredible, and all I had to do was take pictures of it from all the different angles, very much like you selling a car on motorway or something. Take a picture of the engine, take a picture of the engine number, the picture of the dash for the mileage, and then the sent them the logbook and the other stuff that I had, and that's that. And then you get a letter back, the Nova's approved, and blah, 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 this, that, and the other. And lo and behold, it's registered, it's in my name, and that's it. What I didn't know is they automatically tax it. Because it's a classic car, it's automatically taxed. So therefore, if it's not insured, the, the Bureau of Motor Insurers, I think it was, got in touch with me a couple of weeks back and said, we've noticed this car is taxed, but it's not insured. It is illegal to have a car taxed but not insured, so that's how they're keeping down road crime or whatever, people non-insurance. So then I had to sort it, so now I have to insure it before I can tax it again. So they automatically taxed it. I'm really surprised they did that. I think that's something they should change, because that is that's a bit silly, really, because, you know, if you bought a classic car to restore, as I did, well, not restore but modify, and then just stick it in the garage and start taking it apart, you don't know that it's taxed, and all of a sudden you can get a fine. I mean, the letter basically said if I didn't do anything within, I think it was 14 days, I would get a fine. So if I'd been on holiday or hadn't read the letter or something, I would now be having a fine. So basically the vehicle is now SORNed, so it's all legal here in the UK. So basically the cost of the car, as it stood, delivered and registered to me, was roughly £4,400. So you may think that's a lot for a knackered old Fiat 131. I can assure you it's not. That's a really, really good price. A lot of them that are over there are asking sort of €5,000, €6,000. And bearing in mind, all I wanted was a rust-free shell. I didn't care about anything else. I mean, practically every panel on it is dented. All I wanted was a good roof and a good shell, because the rest of it's going in the bin. So there we go. So that's the cost of the car and getting it here and everything. So my plan then was, turns out probably quite stupidly, was to get the car sorted out on the road so I could drive it around for a few weeks before I get it in here and make a rotisserie. Well, I've got a rotisserie, but make the brackets to bolt the body to flip it over and get it all stripped and everything ready for Kevin to do his magic up at Rally Sport Developments. Look them up on Facebook, great company. They actually take a 4-door 131 and convert it into a 2-door for you and do whatever else you want. They'll build you a complete car if you want. So have a look at them. So basically, I decided to get the car on the road, and if you remember, we had an oil leak. So I took the head off I cleaned the engine up thinking it was an oil seal, took the head off, and it wasn't an oil seal, it was actually the head gasket. Then I found bent valves, I found bent springs, and it just went on from there. So I replaced the valves, replaced the springs, and basically rebuilt the engine with all new seals and everything. Then I found water in the gearbox, so the gearbox needed to be rebuilt, so that's all done. Then I discovered that the clutch release bearing was absolutely shot. It was rough as old boots, and the actual clutch plate itself was very close to Dottie, shut up, Dottie. Yeah, so the clutch release bearing was shot. It was like you could hardly turn it, and it was really rough. So I was looking online and I found a clutch really cheap on eBay, so it had to have a new clutch. So there we go, had a new clutch. So there we go, we got the engine rebuilt, we got the gearbox rebuilt, and then I discovered that I had knackered bushes in the suspension. And bear in mind, I've said this on many occasions, and I'm going to repeat myself again, I'm sorry. You must bear in mind, if you get a car like this old, it doesn't have to be MOT'd, and it has to be taxed. It's just that you don't pay for it. If you take it on the road without taxing it, even though it's free, you will still get done for not having tax. You have to tax it even though it's free. Crazy, I know. I expect this bloody government will change all that now. Anyway, so yeah, because of all that, you need to make sure it's on you that the vehicle is roadworthy and would pass an MOT. You could take it for an MOT if you want to. Depends how much how much you know about cars or whatever, but it's entirely up to you. You don't have to. I can assure you, if you had to MOT it, then DVLA would have asked for it. So they haven't asked for anything. So there we go. So it's down to me. So I know now that this car, with all its new brakes and everything, is totally roadworthy. Once it's got its new tyres, it will be absolutely roadworthy, and I'd be happy for anyone to go through it and MOT it and pass it. The only downside to that is, to be MOT legal, it has to have a speedometer that reads in miles per hour, and this car doesn't. So there's nothing illegal about not having a speedo reading in miles per hour. It's just that it wouldn't pass an MOT. And of course, the other thing you have to consider is the headlights. They go, the beam goes the wrong way. You can get those little nylon things you stick on to deflect the beam. I'm not going to be driving this in the dark, so I'm not worried about that. And I'm only going to be driving it for a few weeks, so I'm not worried about that. So that's why I'm not taking it for an MOT. Otherwise I would. I have no problem whatsoever. Once it's got the new rear shocks and the new tyres, absolutely 100% it would pass an MOT. There is no rust. All the suspension joints have been done. Front shock absorbers have been freed up. It's like a new car underneath. It's lovely. So there we go. Right, so because of that, I've had to do a lot of work, and I've done a list of the costings. So I thought I'd run through that with you. So first of all, the brakes. If you remember, the master cylinder was absolutely crudded up. It must have had like 50% water or something in the fluid. The brake fluid is hygroscopic, so it absorbs water. So it's obviously that's what it was. So 41.40 for the master cylinder. The discs were 29.98 for the pair. This is all in pounds, unbelievably, and including postage. The brake pads were £17 and a penny. The rear wheel cylinders I got from Old Timer Shop. I got a sticker up there. Yeah, there it is, Old Timer Shop. Absolutely brilliant company. Absolutely so cheap. The rear wheel cylinders were £16.34 for the pair. That's pounds. The rear brake pipe, the rear flexi hose that goes to the axle, was £15.26, and the front caliper seals were £8.77. So that's everything with the brakes. I haven't included in these costs things like brake fluid, oil, spark plugs, stuff like that, because they're all just service items that you would buy anyway. So that was all stuff that had to be done to get the brakes all sorted. So now the brakes are sorted. I seem to have a bit of a long pedal travel. I've probably got an airlock somewhere. I will get to it. I will get it sorted. As far as the suspension goes, we have new top mounts, because if you remember, they were absolutely shot, and I was worried that it might come through the bonnet or whatever. So I got a pair of those. They were £100, and I bought those from a company in Italy that basically I wouldn't ever use again. The track control arms, if you remember, I bought bushes for the track control arms because the track control arms and the ball joints and everything were absolutely fine. Bought the bushes from this same company in Italy that listed them as with the Fiat 131 part number as a Fiat 131 part. And then when I questioned them, they said, why have you bought these? They don't fit a Fiat 131. So I showed them their advert, and honestly, they offered me like a €7 refund or something. Piss off, I'm not interested. Just go away, I'll never use you again. Anti-roll bar bushes are the ones on the anti-roll bar that go through the track control arms. They were absolutely shot. You got to remember, this car is 43 years old, and it's been stood since 2008, I think. So everything was just crumbling. The rubber was like bloody charcoal. It was just crumbling. So a set of those for both sides, £12.3. They came from Ricambi. The steering rack, if you remember, I buggered that up. That was my fault. I took it out. I wanted to take it apart because they needed to replace the bush. If you remember, the steering rack had a load of play in the end. The bush is just a couple of quid, but then I messed up the steering rack taking it apart. So I bought a replacement steering rack, which isn't a genuine Fiat item. It's a copy, but that was £97.94, including delivery and everything. Again, that came from Old Timer Shop EU. Rear wheel bearings. This, I wasn't going to bother changing them. They were a bit noisy. They had a leak on the seals. Remember, oil was getting into the brake drums. Again, every seal's been changed on this car. They were £23.63 for the pair, and that was a complete kit with the O-rings, the bearings, and the lock rings going on. Absolutely amazing. Rear shock absorbers, again I've got those from Ricambi with delivery, £98.58, and the steering rack bush was £28.67. Oh, that's the piece that goes in the top of the steering rack that I messed up when I broke it when I took it out. So that's that steering rack bush. That was £28.67. I shouldn't really include that in this because I'm not using it on this car. I'm using the upgraded rack. So I could take that off at the end. So it's okay. I'll take that 28 quid off at the end. So the gasket set for the engine. Going on to the engine now. Full gasket set from Ricambi, and it was a beautiful gasket set, absolutely lovely. £76.94 all in. And then I bought that, if you remember, I bought that head gasket specifically for this engine because this is a 1367, and that was £38.26 with delivery. Turns out it was a waste of £38.26 because it's new old stock and the copper's age hardened, and that's it, it doesn't work. Remember, that's why I had to take the head off again. The breather hose that goes on the side of the engine, little right angle thing, £7.75. The pilot bearing for the back of the crank was £8.26. Cam belt kit £24.26. Clutch kit, so that's plate, cover and bearing, and it's genuine sash, £55.05 on eBay from Germany, and that includes delivery. I could not believe it. The valves, set of 4 valves, inlet valves, £41.28. The springs, £47.94, they came from Ricambi. Fuel pump, I was foolish here really. I must have been in another world when I ordered it, because I could have got one over here for about 40 quid and then paid like a £5 delivery, but I bought one from Italy, and with the delivery it was £53.78, and it turns out I think it leaks anyway because again it's new old stock. There seems to be a bit of a thing here, don't buy new old stock parts, engine parts and stuff, because it seems they perish. Fuel line, so 8 fuel line was £4.79. I bought another crank seal, if you remember, for the front of the crank because I didn't like the one that came in that gasket set. It had a weird seal on it, and that was £11.06. I bought a new water pump because the water pump was extremely rusty inside and also very, very stiff to turn. That was £45.63. The carb rebuild kit was worth every penny at £31.29. I paid £70 to have the head skimmed, and the alternator bearings, remember I rebuilt the alternator, they totaled £19.15. Gearbox gasket set was £26.50, again from Ricambio. The bearings totaled something like £26.89. I think they were a bit more than that, but I've got £26.89 listed here. And the fork rubber for the side of the gearbox, which is not very good at all, was £16.05. That came from eBay. So that little lot, just to get this car to drive around for a few weeks, totals £1,148.27, minus the £28.67 for the steering rack bush, so that's roughly 1,120 quid, which isn't bad. I mean, the car is pretty much mechanically restored. I haven't rebuilt the diff, I haven't built the prop shaft, everything else has been done. You know, you've got new steering rack, new brakes, new suspension arms, new rubbers everywhere. You know, it's bloody great. You know, £1,120, 1,100 quid basically, plus your bits and pieces. So really, really happy with that. And as I say, I've done all the work myself other than the head skim. So I can imagine if I had a garage doing this work for me to rebuild an engine and all that, I'd probably looking at something like £3.5 grand. So bear that in mind if you are thinking of buying one of these and getting it on the road. It will bite you all the way, believe me. I was expecting to sort of change the plugs, change the oil, you know, just give it a good old service, give it a wash and take it out. But that's not the way it went at all, is it? Okay, so that's basically that. So this car now owes me about 5,600 quid, about 5,500 quid, so 5.5 grand it owes me as it stands today. And that's a sort of mechanically restored running 131 ready to go on the road. So all it is 5.5 grand plus insurance, which is less than £100. So we're looking at £5,600 tops for an on the road classic Fiat 131, which is great. You know, if you're good at body work, you'll be good with this one because it's not rusty, it's just dented to hell, as I say. I don't care. As you know, I've done that rear end. I've pulled out the rear wing where I think it's been hit 3 times. Looking at the layers of paint on it, so yeah, we've got a little bit of work to do on the rear panel when we fit the new rear panel. More about that in a minute. So yeah, you'll be joining me for that one. You'll love it. So that's it. So 5,600 quid on the road, insured and everything. That's not bad, is it? That's not bad. And if I sold this car today, I would probably get my money back, I think. I saw one recently, went on eBay, absolutely rotten. Same colour as this, but an earlier model with a Series 1, which is what I wanted. But absolutely rotten everywhere. And that went for 2.2, I think. So this has got to be worth 4.5 all day long. I mean, it's absolutely solid. And when I was at Sweet Lamb, I met a gentleman there who was one of Kevin's customers who just bought a car to be converted into Group 4. And when I told him what I paid for this, he'd actually paid 3 times the amount for his, and it sounds like they were basically in the same condition. His was every single panel dented. It was actually the same colour by the look of it as well. I think it was a Series 2 car though, not a Series 3. And he was saying there that, you know, he couldn't believe what I paid for it. Like, he couldn't believe it. But you know, I guess if I'd have spent 5 grand in Italy, 5,000 euros, I probably wouldn't have had to do all this work. But who knows? Who knows? I may have had to do. If it's old, it's old. It doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter if it's been kept in a garage. It doesn't matter if it's been kept in a temperature-controlled environment, or if it's been used every day or whatever. If it's old, it's old. The seals are going to be rotten, especially if it's been stood. So there you go. So as you know, once this period of driving it around for a few weeks is gone, I'm going to be converting this into a Group 4 131 Abarth. Now, Kevin at Rally Sport Development makes pretty much, well, it's not pretty much, he makes everything to convert this car into a 131 2-door Abarth. So I've bought various bits and pieces along the way to sort of soften the blow, because I know it's not going to be a cheap project. So I've got the Group 4 dash, you know, the big flat aluminium panel, the big flat fascia with all the Abarth gauges and everything to go in it, and that was 1,400 euros. The vents, you've got vents on the end of the I've just thought of something I've forgotten here. You've got vents on the end of the dash, which are from a Series 1 car. As I say, if I'd got a Series 1, I wouldn't have had a lot of these costs, but I would have had to still buy the dash and the gauges. But the vent's 150 euros. Then there's also a vent that goes underneath the windscreen that blows the air up to the windscreen for the demisters, and then you've got all the pipes. The Series 3 heater body is the same, but the actual pipework and everything that goes to the vents is all different. So I got all that from a guy in Turkey. That was roughly 250 euros. I've forgotten to add the heater controls. You have different heater controls on a Series 1 to a Series 3, and I managed to get those brand new, believe it or not, with all the cables and everything. And I think that was 150 euros or 100 euros. So I need to add that to this. The rear lights, Series 1 rear lights, these Series 3 lights are so ugly it's untrue. So the Series 1 rear lights, which are like the T knocked over sideways, they were 250 euros. Rear panel to suit those rear lights, so a Series 1 rear panel, which I need for this anyway because this one's been hit and bent. So I'd have to get, even if I was keeping it as a Series 3, I'd have to replace the rear panel or repair it, and that was 400 euros. The front grille, a Series 1 front grille, that was 400 euros. But I think in 1984, 85, I had a T-Reg, so that would have been like a 79 131 1300 2-door in like Wedgwood blue, and I sold that for £400. Breaks my heart. And I've just paid 400 euros for a grille. Crazy. And then the door handles, because these Series 3 door handles are different. They're plastic and they're big and thick. The old Series 1s are much smaller and they're made of metal, which is what the Abarth had on them obviously, and they were 150 euros from Gabrielle, so thank you very much, Gabrielle. So that's all parts for the Group 4. So that comes to 3,000 euros, which is roughly £2,600. Add on another, so it's about £2,700 with those heater controls as well. Then from Kevin, I have bought the radiator and fan, which is roughly around about 900 quid. Now, I know that sounds a lot for a radiator and fan, but what he's done, he's made a Group 4 Series 1 radiator, but out of aluminium. So it's not copper and brass, it's aluminium, so it's much, much lighter. And it's handmade and hand welded and everything. It's beautiful. And then what he's done is fabricated the bracket that holds the fan, so it looks like a genuine Series 1, but it's got the it's got a later fan in it. So it's got a modern sort of race car fan, which is far more efficient than the old plastic thing that Fiat put in. So that was like about £900. So that's, you know, engine cooling is a very, very important thing, especially with these things. And then I've also recently bought a massive box. I've got pretty much everything I need now to turn this into a Group 4. So every single plate, panel, stiffener, extension, bracket, you know, seat mounting brackets, fuel pump brackets, stiffeners for the front, all the brackets for the lights. We've got the light shells themselves that go on the front. We've got the rear turrets, because they're obviously much bigger than the standard car. Lots and lots of stuff, and you'll see all that go in. You'll see me cutting it and welding it and all that. And that's come to roughly £3,800. So yeah, yes, lots of money. So basically, this car now stands me, this project and all the bits I've got in the house for it, I'm roughly £13,000 in already. So as you can see, this is not a cheap project. So let's wait and see what happens next. But I think as far as the shell goes, I think there's a couple of bits and pieces I haven't got. But you know, I've also got all the brackets for the rear end. So all the brackets to convert it into an Abarth Group 4 rear end with the independent rear suspension. I don't have the wishbones or anything. I'll probably make a lot of that myself, because I've got a load of 1-inch CDS here, cold drawn seamless tubing that is. And I can obviously turn the ends and put the threads in and fit the rose joints and everything. So I can do all that myself. I don't need to pay Kevin to do all that. And we've got an agreement on that basically, if I can make it myself, I will, and any advice I need, he will help me. If he sends me an information drawings and stuff, don't ask me to send it to you, because I won't. If he sends me anything, it's going to be trust. And I also have a lot of photographs and stuff from him that I think he won't want me to share either, because obviously this goes out to the world, and he's done a lot of work in sort of designing all this stuff and making it all work and making it fit, and he doesn't want everybody else just using all his expertise and just jumping on the bandwagon. You know what it's like in this world these days. So yeah, please don't ask me for any dimensions or anything of any parts. I don't feel obliged to pass them on. But where I can, I am going to make stuff myself for this car. And Kevin knows that, and he's agreed. So, but for instance, like the steering rack, to convert it to a Group 4, it has to have a little bit of machining done on the aluminium part and a little bit of machining done on the other end. So rather than me ask for drawings and do the work myself, which I could easily do, I'm just going to send him my rack and let him do it, because, you know, why should he have to send me drawings? That's not his thing. So there we go, guys. Roughly £13,000 in. And there we are. So yeah, so as I say, at the moment, this car owes me about £5,600. When it arrived on the 1st of June this year, well, not when it arrived, but after it was registered and everything, before I touched it, before I even got a spanner anywhere near it, it owed me £4,400 plus the import VAT, which wasn't very much at all. So there we go. So if you're thinking about undertaking something like this, that's the sort of money you're looking at, and it's not going to stop. It's going to go on and on and on. And the beauty of it is, once you've done the shell, once you've got this Group 4 2-door shell with all your doors and everything, and it's just a 2-door car, and your bodywork, you can then go and get your Honda K Series, or you know, your Lancia 16 valve, get a BMW rear diff, whatever. You can do all sorts and chop and change it and make it all work. You don't have to use the Group 4 Abarth stuff. But if you're going to build a Group 4 Abarth replica car, you know, basically the term I use, This will not be a Mirafiori Sport with a body kit. Okay, there's a few of those about, which is absolutely great, and they're beautiful and I love them to bits, but this will not be a Mirafiori Sport with a body kit. This will be a Group 4 replica. All right, but how far we go with suspension, engine, brakes, stuff like that, I really don't know at this moment in time. We shall see. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you if you lasted that, then you've done really, really well. I've probably sent you to sleep 3 or 4 times. And the next video is going to be getting those rear shocks done. So I'm going to try and video some of that. And what I'm intending to do, I've been thinking about it, I'm intending to use my ramp, some axle stands and my spring compressors, and basically lift the car up and down on the axle stands and get those rear shocks in that way. I don't want to go the route of the Haynes manual, which is basically disconnecting everything, which means bleeding the brakes again, and allowing everything to come down. They say, you know, take the panhard rod off, take all the links off, everything. I can't see why you should take all the links off. I'll have a look at it again and we'll go from there. But anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you all very soon. Maybe tomorrow, we shall see. And I would like to say the gods are watching over me, not because I've got a stinky cold, lovely, or it's not a stinky cold, it's a horrible cold, but just I got this done. And you know, we've had some really dreadful weather in the UK these last week or so, and I was thinking I'm going to get this done and we're going to have awful weather. This week's going to be gorgeous, so this car may well go on the road tomorrow or Tuesday, we shall see. My goal is to drive it to the pub and home again without it breaking. We shall see. I'll have to slowly sort of, you know, extend the distances. I'm a little bit concerned about, once again, the gearbox. It seems to be, you know, gearboxes rattle when they're idling. It has that rattle to it, but it seems to be a little bit noisier than I would like, particularly as I replaced all the bearings. So I'm thinking that maybe it's because it's a bit dry, because it hasn't been all had to splash around there and got everything soaking wet and all yet. But just fingers crossed. But if it goes, it goes. You know, these gearboxes, you can get them. Right, I'll see you all soon. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.